Hello and welcome you all in the course of Probability and Statistics. Now I am your instructor Hardik Joshi. Today we should learn about a new concept in probability and statistics. More precisely is application of statistics. That is the testing of hypotheses. Now in detail we have to check how we can check the testing of hypotheses. So we have to start with the very basic component of the testing of hypothesis. So the testing of hypothesis. So first of all we have to discuss what is the need, why we should study, what is the requirement for testing of hypothesis. So in many practical study, in many practical situation, it is necessary to make decision about a population. Now again here we have to highlight this word say populations. Now here the meaning of population, that is we cannot consider the dictionary meaning of the populations, that is the size of the people, size of country, strength of people, persons. No, the meaning of population in this particular unit, that is the application of statistics, that is equivalent the total possible outcomes of the random experiments. So population in this particular unit is equivalent the total possible probability of that particular random experiment which we want to perform. So population or its unknown characteristics on the basis of sample observation. So definitely is a application of statistics. So the characteristics. So characteristics of these random experiments, that is we have to talk about some mathematical expectation, that is mu. Its other parameter like say variance, standard deviations, each and everything that is useful to check the testing of the hypothesis. So for example, in biomedical study, we may be investing, we are interested to check a particular theory that the recently developed medicine, a new developed medicine is much better than the conventional medicine, that is the existing medicine. So we have to say in general, say any of the drug manufacturer, any of the drug industry produce a new medicine and they have to claim that our produce new medicine is a very novel and it's overcome the drawback of the medicine which is recently available. So to check this type of statement, we need to study this unit, that is application of statistics. So for this purpose, we propose a statement on the population or the theory. Such statement are called hypotheses. So remember, I will recall again hypothesis. Hypothesis is nothing but certain company, that is a biomedical company, state that whatever produce or we have to invent a new medicine. Now that medicine is say cure more accurately, is more beneficially as compared to the existing medicines. So these are just like one of the postulate, and this type of postulate is nothing but is known as the hypothesis. So continue testing of hypothesis. So the statistical hypothesis testing play a very important pivotal role among other in various fields. So definitely it's not play a role in just only biomedical industry, but it's play a very important role in say any of the industry, biological science, behavior science and economics, as well as in our day-to-day life. It's play many important role. One by one we have to see that how we have to use the application of statistics in our day-to-day life. In each hypothesis testing problem, we will often find as there are two hypotheses. So remember, whatever problem arises, now according to that problem, the two hypotheses we have to choose, and namely is known as the null hypothesis, and second one the alternative hypothesis. So basically whatever problem is arise, whatever statement we have to assign, the statement declare, postulate declare by any of the industry, organization, particular person. Now corresponding to that postulate, the two hypotheses is assigned. The first one is the null hypothesis, second one is alternative hypothesis. So next we have to see in the detail what is the null hypothesis and what is the alternative hypothesis. So let's see first the null hypothesis. A hypothesis which is to be actually tested. So whatever statement tells by some of the industry, organization, some particular person, and we have to check the statement said by this particular organization, industry, particular person is right, wrong. So we have to test that statement. So for possible rejection, it may be right, it may be wrong. Based on, definitely we have to take some statistical data, that is random sample is known as the null hypothesis. So whatever statement we have to check, first of all by default we have to assume, say whatever statement stated by that particular person, industry, organization, it may be true, and we have to assume it stands for H0, that is null hypothesis. Now where capital H stands for the hypothesis and this 0 stands for the null. Null, that is nothing like 0. So 0 stands for null, H stands for hypothesis. So that's why we have to assign the notation H0 corresponding to null hypothesis. Now alternative hypothesis, so sometimes is also known as contradict hypothesis. So contradicts, definitely whatever you have to assume in null hypothesis is contradict that statement, that is wrong. So alternative hypothesis, sometimes is suggested contradictory hypothesis. So a statement about the populations. Now again the population, that is not strength of the people, but population is stand for the total possible probability. So which contradict the null hypothesis. So see clearly this statement, contradict the null hypothesis is known as the alternative hypothesis. Now definitely to contradict this hypothesis we require some statistical or some evidence to contradict, these are wrong. So there are variety of tests available, one by one we have to see each and every one. So when we have to contradict the null hypothesis, then is known as the alternative hypothesis. An alternative hypothesis is denoted by this symbol H1, where capital H stands for the hypothesis and 1 is stand for alternative, contradict hypothesis. Now some of the author also use say H in the suffix A, where A stand for the alternative hypothesis. So sometimes HA is used instead of H1. So let's see the example. If we test whether the population mean has a specified value mu 0. So the question suggests that the population mean has specified value say mu 0. So we have to assume the population, that is population mean, that is average is mu 0. So corresponding to this, what we have to arise, we have to write down the one null hypothesis and corresponding alternatives, that is we have to reject if the null hypothesis is wrong. So we have to assume the null hypothesis would be say H0 is mu, that is mean is equal to mu 0, that is mean is whatever given in the definition mu 0, that is mean, that is average is mu 0, we have to assume it may be right. So we have to assume the null hypothesis, that is the statement given in the definition, it may be correct. So the alternative hypothesis may be formulated. Now remember, alternative hypothesis, that is the contradiction. contradiction of this null hypothesis. So the null hypothesis tells that the mean is equivalent to mu 0. But its contradiction, that is mu is not equal to mu 0. So there are a variety of alternative hypotheses is possible corresponding to this case. The first one is, say, alternative hypothesis stand for H1, that is mu not equal to mu 0. That is contradiction of this. That means this hypothesis tells that mu is equivalent to mu 0. So alternative hypothesis tells that no, is wrong, mu is not equal to mu 0. So these are the first case which is arise. Now the second case, we say more precisely, say alternative hypothesis H1, that is mu is greater than mu 0. Definitely is not equal to, but we have to say that mu is greater than mu 0. And in the third case, we have to consider, say, H1, that is mu is less than mu 0. So these three types of alternative hypotheses arrive, and according to this, if we have to pick up any one of them, so definitely this hypothesis, that is mu equal to mu 0, is rejected. The alternative hypothesis in one, now this first, is known as two-sided alternative. And the alternative hypothesis in this two is definitely known as one-sided. Remember why this first is two-sided? Because it just tells is mu is not equal to mu 0. It means that it may be case either mu is greater than mu 0, yeah, it may be case mu less than mu 0. That's why there are two possibilities arise. Either greater than, mu is greater than mu 0, yeah, mu is less than mu 0. That's why it's known as two-sided. Now this second, mu is greater than mu 0. So it's known as one-sided, and more precisely greater than, that is right alternative, yeah, right-sided test. Similarly, the third one, mu is less than mu 0. So is again one-sided, more precisely is known as left-sided, left alternative state. So these three types of alternative hypotheses arise. It may be either checked by two-sided alternative test, one-sided alternative test, and more precisely right and left alternative test. So now next, definitely whenever we have to check our hypothesis is right, that is H0 is true, yeah, H0 is false. So definitely practically if we have to talk about, so there are definitely some error are there. We cannot say that whatever decision we have to given, it may be 100% true. Definitely it may consist of some error. So how we can rectify this error? Yeah, which type of error is possible? So a statistical decision in a hypothesis to check the null hypothesis H0 is right, yeah, wrong. So to check this null hypothesis right, yeah, wrong, so there are known as a error in the statistical hypothesis testing. And now statistical decisions are governed by certain rules. So definitely there are some certain rules to develop or to check the hypothesis is right, yeah, wrong. So we have to include some statistical theory which is already developed. We have to just follow that statistical theory. So finally we have to tell that to check the null hypothesis is right, yeah, wrong. Now to take this type of decision is known as the rejection rules. So basically there are say two types of error, so types 1 error and type 2 error. Now we have to see in the detail. So we have to prepare a decision table. Now here we have to write down, say H0, that is null hypothesis is true, H0, that is null hypothesis is false. Now here we have to again write down the column. So we have to reject the null hypothesis and do not reject the null hypothesis. So one by one we have to discuss these 4 cases. Whenever we have to say assign, yeah, give any of the decision, so definitely always there are say four possible situations is arise. These are first, second, third and fourth. So one by one we have to discuss each of them. So listen carefully. First of all, we have to discuss, say our null hypothesis is true. That is, whatever assumption given by any of the person, industry or organization is true. And that is H0 is true, and we have to reject the null hypothesis. Then the type 1 error is occur. I will repeat again, when the null hypothesis is true, but we have to reject the null hypothesis, then type 1 error is occur. Now the second, if the null hypothesis is false and we have to reject the null hypothesis, then definitely is a good thing, because it's already false and that's why we have to reject it. So it's a good decision, that is the correct decision. Now second, do not reject the null hypothesis. So ultimately we have to say that we have to accept the null hypothesis. Now the null hypothesis is true, do not reject. So definitely null hypothesis is true, that's why we have to not reject, that is we have to accept. So it's a good decision, that is correct decision. The fourth case, the null hypothesis is false. So remember, the null hypothesis is false, still we do not reject. Is false, but still we do not reject it, we have to accept. So it's a wrong decision. So type 2 error is occur. So again I will repeat, when null hypothesis is true and we have to reject, that is a drawback from our sides, that is the type 1 error, and is a serious error, because it's true and we have to reject from our sides. So type 1 error is occur. Now if the null hypothesis is false and we do not reject, that is we have to accept it, still it's false, so type 2 error is occur. So basically there are two types of error, type 1 error and type 2 error. So in more detail we have to see in the next upcoming lecture. So thank you so much for paying your attention.